Chapter 1395. Old Master Li's heart ached as well, but he still hoped that his son would make the right choice. His son had no merits at all. He had no talent or ability. He was weak and paranoid. He was overcautious and didn't understand the big picture. Although he wasn't good in every aspect, he wasn't completely undesirable in terms of relationships. Back then, he had taken a liking to Wang Rishan and had wholeheartedly wanted to marry that woman. He had dragged that woman to him with a pair of cautious yet firm eyes. For the first time, he had felt that his son was not that bad after all. They had been together for so many years, and there was nothing wrong with his son's lifestyle. There were so many women out there, but he had never fallen in love with any of them. Although he was not gentle with Wang Rishan, as time passed, his feelings for her had become more restrained. Otherwise, with Wang Rishan's temper, this son of his would have found someone else a long time ago. You want to chase her away? Li Peixian was shocked. Do you think she can still stay? The Li family has raised her heart for so many years that she no longer cares about her family. She even harmed her own son. How can she still stay in the Li family? Old Master Li retorted. Unfortunately, with Wang Rishan's identity, they could not chase her away directly. Otherwise, she would cause trouble in the future. Thus, it was best to find a place for her to stay quietly. Of course, she still had so many years to live. It was torture for her to only be able to look at the sea on that island. But Li Peixian wiped the sweat off his forehead and pretended to be calm. However, his panicked eyes betrayed him. After a while, he could not help but say, "Father, wasn't there no big deal? Chasing her away like this, it's not good. That's why I'm letting you choose. With you, at least you can accompany her, right?" Old Master Li's voice turned cold. Nothing big happened? What if something happened? He understood his grandson and future granddaughter-in-law very well. If his grandson really got together with Yi Chu, then the two of them would definitely have no chance. The word love was Xiaoyun's only weakness. Without Jing Yunzhao, wouldn't he go crazy? Moreover, he knew better than anyone how much effort he had put into Jing Yunzhao all these years.
Dad.
Li Peixian was really anxious now. We're going to have to stay here for decades. We won't have any friends, and we won't even have anyone. He knew about the island. It was indeed built, but the island was empty. Other than some animals, there were only empty houses and the sea. How could they live there? Peixian, you don't have to go, but she has to go. Old Master Li was still very determined. Li Peixian stood to the side like a wooden sculpture. After a while, he loosened his clenched fists and said in a hoarse voice, You will come to see me, right? When Xiaoyun's wedding is over, I will make a trip there. In the future, I will pay you a visit every year. When my legs are too weak and I no longer want to move, I will go to your place to enjoy my retirement. So, after you go there, live a good life. You can fish and grow your own crops. Don't always think of waiting for outside supplies. When your life is fulfilled, you won't feel bitter anymore, said Old Man Li. A bitter smile flashed across Li Peixian's face. All these years, he had always wanted power. Wasn't it because he wanted to gain his father's approval? Of course, he knew that was impossible. Since that was the case, there was nothing wrong with living like this. When he was young, his father would only come home once a month, and each visit would only be for a short while. Back then, he had thought that when his father grew old, he wouldn't be so busy anymore. And now, his father's wish from several decades ago was about to come true. Chapter 1396. The father and son chatted for a long time. This was the first time that Old Master Li had talked to his son so calmly. He didn't have to restrain his unrealistic ambitions or scold him for being greedy. After all, he was his son, and he couldn't be cruel. He was curious about how Wang Rishan could be so decisive. When Old Master Li talked to Li Peixian, he didn't let Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun participate, so the two of them didn't know about Old Master Li's decision. Old Master Li's thoughts were more thorough than anyone else's. His 3 children used to be a headache when they got together, but as long as his son and daughter-in-law were gone, his 2 daughters would have no one to use in the future, so it wouldn't be a problem. Moreover, this kind of punishment was to make an example of them. The two of them weren't stupid and knew what to do best for themselves. When Li Peixian returned, it was already late at night. When he thought of his wife, he had mixed feelings. To be honest, they had been together for so many years, and the impulse and feelings of youth had long disappeared. However, if he didn't have this woman one day, he would feel empty and uncomfortable. This person had long become his habit. Wang Rushan was indeed not a good mother, and she might not be a competent wife. However, over the years, the husband and wife had always been on the same side, thinking about the demons and monsters he encountered at work and what kind of appearance to show at the next banquet. To outsiders, they had never given up on the other side. Just this point alone made it impossible for him to leave Wang Rushan alone on that small island to live. What his wife did indeed make him angry, but he still had to face it. Teaching his wife a lesson and completely leaving her behind were two completely different concepts. With a sigh, Li Peixian stepped into the house. He had even thought about what kind of attitude his wife would use to complain to him. However, when he opened the door, he found that there was no one in the house. All these years, no matter what happened, he was the only one who left. Because his wife's family had declined, and she had nowhere to go, she could only stay at home. But now, why was she gone? Li Peixian had a bad feeling. He lifted his feet and carefully looked at every room, but there was still no trace of Wang Rushan. There were only some messy things and wine bottles left in the room. It should have been caused by his wife drinking to vent, but it hadn't been long. His wife couldn't have drunk and run around after thinking about it for a while. Li Peixian called Li Xiaoyan to ask about it. However, when Li Xiaoyan heard the name Wang Ruchun, his face instantly darkened. He immediately hung up the phone and didn't want to ask any more questions. Yesterday, Auntie Li wanted to set you up with Yi Chu, but because you took out a gun, Yi Chu left secretly. Would she go back to catch Auntie Li because she didn't succeed? Jing Yunzhao asked from the side. Actually, when I came back, I was thinking, could it be that Yi Chu had gotten hold of something that could be used against Auntie Li? Think about it. Although Auntie Li is an indecisive person, she is not a fool. She will not choose Yi Chu over you, right? Even if she wants to set you up, she shouldn't use such an extreme method all of a sudden. Don't you think so? Li Xiaoyun's face froze. The person who can make her push me away without hesitation is my father? Do you want to investigate anything that can be used against them? Jing Yunzhao asked. Li Xiaoyan frowned and thought carefully. After a few seconds, he said with a gloomy face, "No need to check. I know." Chapter 1397. As soon as Li Xiaoyan spoke, Jing Yunzhao was shocked. She stared at him with wide eyes and said, "You know, does Auntie Li really have something on you?" What she said before was just her guess. After all, Wang Rushan's actions were really unreasonable. As for Yi Chu, he seemed kind, but the hostility he revealed whenever he looked at her made her think more. She just didn't expect that what she said casually was actually true. Although Wang Rushan didn't care much about her son, she was just a weak, incompetent, and greedy woman. She was a little surprised that Yi Chu had something on her. Recently, when I checked the accounts, I found that some of the money my mother spent was not clear, so I learned that she has a childhood friend who works as a gardener in the Li family. However, I didn't find any other relationship between them. I was going to deal with him in private, but I didn't find a suitable excuse, Li Xiaoyan said. If he didn't find a good excuse, it would be inappropriate if everyone knew about it. Even if there was really nothing between them, it would become a problem. Jing Yunzhao was silent for a moment. As Mrs. Li, Wang Rushan had to think about the Li family's reputation. She didn't have to maintain a relationship with all men, but she had to have principles. If it was really necessary to spend money on a man, she should at least do it secretly, or find someone else to do it. That way, she wouldn't be found out later. The last thing she should do was hide it from her husband and son. A lie would easily cause people to overthink. If something were to spread, then the Li clan would become a joke. Even Li Xiaoyan's identity would be unclear to others. Jing Yunzhao listened to Li Xiaoyan talk about the man's situation in detail and snorted. What kind of person could receive a large sum of money from his childhood friend for several years? Wang Rishan was very concerned about her reputation, so she definitely wouldn't just spend a few thousand yuan. Moreover, according to Li Xiaoyan, Wang Rishan had already spent about a few million yuan on the other party's parents' medical fees. She really couldn't figure out why an old couple who worked so hard would spend so much. To put it bluntly, Wang Rishan's so-called kindness was probably deceived. However, she still naively thought that the years of friendship between childhood friends were trustworthy. What should we do now? We can't just ignore her, can we? Jing Yunzhao sighed and continued, since Grandpa Li has already thought of a way to deal with this, then let's just find the person and bring her back first. Letting others take advantage of us while we're at loggerheads makes me even more unhappy. Li Xiaoyan glanced at her and nodded. Jing Yunzhao didn't like to meddle in other people's business at all, not to mention that her mother had been cold to her time and time again. The reason why she decided to help was that her mother was still a member of the Li family. However, he was right about one thing. Even though he didn't like his mother, it didn't mean that he would allow others to challenge the Li family's authority. Once the matter was decided, Li Xiaoyan immediately sent people to investigate. Soon, there was preliminary news. This person was indeed taken away. The camera near the Li family did capture a suspicious car, but the other party was very well guarded. Obviously, it was not just one person. Along the way, they changed several cars. In the end, it was difficult to find Wang Rishan's current location. Chapter 1398. At first, Jing Yunzhao thought that the person who did this was Yi Chu. But now, she was a little confused. If it was really Yi Chu, then the other party must have come prepared. Even the reason why he became Wang Rishan's savior was calculated. But in her memory, there was no such person as Yi Chu. Not only that, the other party's action of taking Wang Rishan away seemed simple, but in fact, no one could find any trace of it. A person who has the ability to deceive people is definitely not a simple person. Jing Yunzhao frowned. She was puzzled. After a while, she called her first uncle. When she thought of the fact that the kidnapping and the route were so skillful, she felt that this matter must have something to do with Jean Iran, who had been hiding in the dark. But all this time, Jean Iran had been carefully watched by her first uncle. If there was really any movement, first uncle should be able to find out immediately. When the phone was connected, first uncle's slightly tired voice came through. Jing Yunzhao went straight to the point and asked, "First uncle, how is Jean Iran recently?" Did you get any news?" Su Yuantek rubbed his eyebrows and said, "Recently, the underworld is a little chaotic. Recently, the police received news that Jean Iran secretly made a batch of dirty things. If it flows to the market, it will definitely have a big impact. I've put pressure on people to step up the investigation and keep an eye on Jean Iran every day, but, Zhao, this time, Jean Iran is really waging war on us. Recently, your cousin has been very busy. Because of the deaths in the underworld every 2 or 3 days, it is difficult to find the murderer. It is a little difficult to go into the wolf's den all day long." Su Yuantek said. If it was an ordinary murder case, with Su Hong's ability, it would be easy for him to solve it. But it involved the forces in the dark. There were many obstacles if he wanted to investigate it. In short, everything became a little complicated. "First uncle, can you tell me in detail what the police have received? What exactly did Jean Iran make?" Jing Yunzhao thought for a while and asked, "We are not very sure, but the undercover agent said that if this thing flows to the market, it will cause a big impact. It should be an addictive drug, more serious than the drugs on the market. It is definitely a threat to life." Su Yuantek said again. Jing Yunzhao furrowed her brows. "Medicine again? And it is addictive and has a life-threatening effect. First uncle, is there any other news about this drug?" Jing Yunzhao asked. The police found a burnt corpse. It was probably the person who took the medicine. The forensic doctor identified some special ingredients, but it's impossible to analyze the specific proportion of the formula. If you're interested, let Hong take you to see it. "I almost forgot that you're a doctor," Su Yuanzi said again. Of course, he would not forget such an important thing. However, Jing Yunzhao was treating a living person. She might not have the ability to treat a dead person. Moreover, the burned body was really difficult to accept. Therefore, he did not want his niece to be involved. But now that she asked in such a serious manner, she probably wanted to get to the bottom of it. As long as she was not afraid, it was fine for her to go. Jing Yunzhao immediately agreed. Her intuition told her that Yi Chu and Jean Yuran should be in cahoots. Chapter 1399. She had taken Li Xiaoyun's pulse before, so she clearly knew the level and specifications of the drug he had been poisoned with. It could be said that there were only a few national healers who could concoct that kind of drug. Furthermore, the method used was exactly the same as Madame Jing's. The poison used by Madame Jing actually had a certain degree of medicinal properties. It existed for treatment. The kind that Li Xiaoyun had been poisoned with was colorless and odorless, but its medicinal properties were extremely strong. It was suitable for treating fire poison injuries. However, the other party had added an aphrodisiac and increased the proportion of hallucinogenic drugs, so the treatment effect was lost and it became another harmful substance. The Madame Jing. Even Elder Jing Rong wouldn't have such a dangerous drug formula. The only person who could have come into contact with it was actually only her. However, she dared to guarantee that she had never spread the formula that could harm others. That's not right. A thought suddenly flashed through Jing Yunzhao's mind. Other than her, Grandpa should also have that kind of ability. After all, the Jing and Su families were of the same origin, and their methods of using medicine were practically the same. Therefore, if Grandpa Su were to put some thought into it, there was still a high possibility that he would be able to discover something. However, there was no need for him to do so. As for the last suspicious person, that would be her father. Her father's medical skills were actually taught to him by Grandpa in a more subtle way. Moreover, he had been obsessed with medicine for so many years, so the possibility was very high. However, she didn't think that a gentle and noble man like her father would like to study such unorthodox drugs. Jing Yunzhao thought for more than 10 minutes before a figure appeared in her mind. It was an extremely beautiful woman, Wan Xiaoxia. She hadn't seen that woman for a long time. Sometimes, she had even completely forgotten about her. However, now that she thought about it carefully, that woman wasn't an ordinary stubborn person. She shouldn't be someone who would give up so easily. Most importantly, she had lived in the Li family for decades. Although the Li family wasn't very proficient in national healers, there were countless ancient books at home. Moreover, her father was obsessed with medicine. When they were young, they had studied medicine together and learned from each other. It could be said that Wan Xiaoxia's medical skills weren't inferior to her father's. Not only that, but she was also the person whose medical skills were the closest to Madame Jing's other than her father and grandfather. However, when she thought that this person could directly study some of Madame Jing's secret prescriptions, she shuddered. Wait a minute. Jing Yunzhao's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of coldness. Jing family's secret recipe, secret technique. She remembered that a long time ago, there were people who said that the Jing family had left behind a secret book, but no one had been able to find it. Even Li Wenba had tried his best to find it, but no one knew where her grandmother had hidden it, so his efforts were in vain. Wan Xiaoxia was also very knowledgeable about the Jing clan. Could it be that she had already found the medical book in advance? That's why she was able to develop the medicine to harm people? Thinking of this, Jing Yunzhao shuddered. She knew better than anyone else what was in the medical skills left behind by the ancestor. She also knew that some things could not be used by people with ill intentions. Otherwise, the consequences would be severe. Otherwise, there would not have been such strict management over the years to prevent the Jing family's secret arts from being exposed. Of course, the contents of that secret technique should be different from the contents of the spirit jade in her space. After all, it was to be passed down from generation to generation. There shouldn't be too many harmful medicines in it. The most important thing was to cure illnesses and save people. Chapter 1400. Jing Yunzhao thought about it back and forth a few times. After she understood the pros and cons of the situation, she didn't stay at home for too long. Wang Ro-chun definitely couldn't be found by now, so there was no point in being anxious. Moreover, since this matter was related to Jeannie Ran, then going to the police station to take a look at the corpse shouldn't be wrong. Jing Yunzhao informed Su Hong in advance, but when he saw Su Hong, he was shocked. Recently, Su Hong was very busy and rarely stayed at the Su family. Therefore, they didn't have many opportunities to meet each other. At this time, Su Hong's handsome face was slightly unkempt. There were serious dark circles under his eyes, his clothes were dry, and his face was covered in stubble. He looked like he had suffered a major blow. "Cousin, how many days have you not slept?" Jing Yunzhao asked as they walked. Su Hong yawned subconsciously. There have been too many murders recently, and all of them are related to that group of violent people. It's difficult to investigate the cases, and I have to wait day and night. I have only slept for a few hours in the past few days. Cousin, give me some medicine to wake me up so that I won't be sleepy when I go back to catch the culprit. Jing Yunzhao looked at him sympathetically. In your current situation, the best medicine to wake you up is sleep. Moreover, you can't take medicine indiscriminately. Otherwise, you will overdraw your lifespan. Jing Yunzhao advised. Only this time. After I catch Jeannie Ran, the mastermind, I will have a good holiday. At this time, Su Hong didn't have any foreign habits. Jing Yunzhao looked at him and was a little worried. Is Jeannie Ran's actions very frequent? Jing Yunzhao opened the door to the room where the corpse was stored and asked. When Su Hong heard this, he became more serious and said, "It's quite frequent. I even suspect that he's crazy, insisting on going against the government at this time. You don't know this, but he's now fighting with others for territory. Those who offend him are secretly killed. His actions are ruthless and straightforward, and not a single trace of fingerprints or evidence is left behind. In addition, every time he kills someone, he'll send them to a conspicuous place, causing panic among the citizens. In the past month, there has been a case almost every day. If another batch of drugs under his command causes more deaths, I'm afraid your uncle will have to take the blame and resign. Of course, the possibility is not very high, but I suspect that his target is your eldest uncle. It's not important that he resign, but I'm afraid that he will use that drug to deal with the Su family," Su Hong said. There was a reason for this. Some of the recent deaths were due to vengeance, and some died because of drug testing. In addition, there were many famous doctors who went missing recently. The spy revealed that they might have gone to research the antidote. Researching an antidote was not good news, because the other party had developed a problem that even famous doctors could not solve. In other words, the other party was afraid that Jing Yunzhao would make a move and fail. It was a pity that they did not have any information about those medicines. Otherwise, they could have let Jing Yunzhao study them in advance. He did not think that Jing Yunzhao would be able to find the antidote from a dead person. Jing Yunzhao listened attentively. After entering, he put on protective clothing and a mask and walked towards the rows of corpses. There were so many corpses that it was a bit shocking. Most of them had been dissected, and even if they were restored to their original state, the stitches could not be covered up. Chapter 1401. Su Hong usually had more chances to come into contact with these corpses, so his tolerance was relatively good compared to others. However, when he saw the corpse in front of him, his eyelids twitched violently, and he tilted his head. The corpse was charred black, and the face could not be seen clearly. However, he could feel that there were other wounds on the body, which should have been caused by some machetes. Jing Yunzhao had seen some corpses before, but she had never seen such a disgusting one. Suddenly, she found it difficult to bear, but when she thought of the drugs hidden in this person's body, she still carefully observed it. The smell on this person's body had almost been burned away, so it was difficult to smell it. However, since he had taken drugs, there must be a lot of residue in the body's organs. The police had already analyzed some data, and combined with her own judgment, she could roughly guess what kind of drug the other party had used. Jing Yunzhao stayed in the room for a long time. Originally, Su Hong was still accompanying her, but now he was definitely the busiest person in the police station. Not long after, he hurried out to handle the case. After a few hours, Jing Yunzhao compared the data given by the forensic doctor and came to a conclusion. At this time, She was even more certain of her previous thoughts. The person who had drugged Jing Yunzhao was very familiar with Jing Yunzhao's drug habits, and the data directly reminded her of a prescription left by her ancestors called the Vital Energy Pill. It was used to suppress some of the foul qi in the body, and in modern terms, it was used to suppress bacteria. Some patients could use this pill to treat terminal diseases, but the other party changed the drugs inside a few times, causing the body's functions to rapidly decline after taking it. The weakened body provided a better environment for the body's bacteria, causing the entire person to be unable to be treated. Because the body was too weak, almost all kinds of drugs could not be tolerated. However, this medicine was obviously still in the experimental stage. She clearly felt that the other party seemed to want to make the person who took it suffer some pain, so they added some other stimulants, but because the combination was not very reasonable, the effect was not very great. According to Su Hong, many of the corpses found recently had been drugged. It seemed that the person behind it was still in the midst of research. She had some ways to detoxify these poisons. After looking at a few corpses, she could roughly confirm that the other party only had a few prescriptions that could harm people. Even if she tried to change them, they would still remain the same. She was very familiar with the counteracting laws between the drugs. As long as she could diagnose the poisoned person's pulse immediately, it shouldn't be a problem for her to temporarily save the person's life. However, just in case, she still needed to prepare a few more types of antidote pills to avoid any accidents. Of course, she also rejoiced in her heart. If her medical skills were only inherited from the current Jing clan, then she would definitely be helpless against these things. Perhaps the person behind the scenes would never have thought that her master was the founder of the Jing clan, the ancestor. Her skills were naturally not something that the secret arts of the Jing clan could compare to. After confirming the authenticity of the medicine, Jing Yunzhao had an idea. After returning, Jing Yunzhao immediately entered the space to prepare several antidotes. Time passed very slowly in the space. Jing Yunzhao had been busy for a few days, but only a day had passed since she came out. Li Xiaoran finally found some clues. After Wang Rishan was taken away, although she changed several cars, according to her suspicions, Li Xiaoyan specially investigated the movements of Jin Yiran and the various forces around him. He found that last night, a cruise ship under the name of Jin Yiran's confidant set sail overnight. It should be in the high seas now, and there seemed to be a woman tied up on the cruise ship. According to the information that Li Xiaoran caught, it was most likely Wang Rishan. Chapter 1402. After learning that Wang Rishan had been sent out to sea, Jing Yunzhao was a little puzzled. With Jin Yiran's ability, if he wanted to kill someone, he could do it without leaving a trace. There was no need for him to go to the international waters. However, before she could make any guesses, Su Yuantek sent her another piece of bad news. When Jing Yunzhao went to observe the corpse yesterday, Su Hong had already gone out to investigate the case. Because of his identity as a suspect, he had to greet some people in the underworld. Originally, he had brought a lot of people with him. However, last night, there was a sudden conflict with the other party. The scene was a mess. When the police came to control the situation, they couldn't find Su Hong. Although there were many witnesses at the scene, the police interrogated them for an entire night, and none of them saw Su Hong leave. At that time, Su Hong's colleagues were surrounded by a group of people. They couldn't even take care of themselves. Therefore, when the news of Su Hong's disappearance spread, his colleagues insisted that it was those thugs who did it. However, there was no evidence. Similar to Wang Rishan's disappearance, even the surveillance cameras on the streets couldn't capture a trace of him. Su Hong's disappearance was a big blow to Jing Yunzhao. She hurriedly returned to the Su family. The news didn't reach the grandfather's ears. However, Su Yuantek and Su Wencheng had a serious expression on their faces. Shen Tong, who had become the mistress of the Su family, didn't know about the situation at all. She was still confused and didn't dare to disturb the brothers when they were talking. Yunzhao, your uncle, and the others seem to have encountered something. Their work is too complicated and I don't know much about it. You should help them. Don't let them work too hard. When she saw Jing Yunzhao, Shen Tong didn't forget to say this. Su Hong was Shen Tong's only son. The mother and son had relied on each other for more than 20 years. If she knew about the situation before she knew it, she would be worried for nothing. I know. Jing Yunzhao nodded. Shen Tong smiled and said, "Your cousin has been too busy recently. Every time you come back, you don't see him. I'll teach him a lesson next time." At the mention of Su Hong, Jing Yunzhao's expression became somewhat awkward and serious. She was not good at deceiving or hiding things from her own people, but she had no choice but to do so. At this moment, she lowered her head slightly and did not meet Shen Tong's gaze. She said indifferently, "There have been a lot of murders recently. Cousin must be so busy that he forgets to eat and sleep. I'm not an insensible little girl. I don't need him to come back and coax me every time. You, as a younger sister, isn't it natural for her brother to accompany her?" Shen Tong smiled. She knew that Jing Yunzhao must have come to look for her husband and brother-in-law, so she didn't say much before letting Jing Yunzhao go to the study room. Inside the study, the air seemed to have solidified. The two brothers seemed to have just quarreled, their faces and necks flushed red. As soon as Jing Yunzhao appeared, the two of them looked slightly better. "Zhao, I've already told you most of the things on the phone, but on your way here, we received this," Su Yuantek said as he handed over the things in his hand. It was a folder and a letter. Jing Yunzhao opened the folder and looked at it. The first thing that came into view was the information about a building accident that happened about 2 to 3 months ago. The building collapsed, but because it happened in the middle of the night, some of the workers in the building were not around, so there were no casualties. Although it attracted the attention of the public, the people who should have dealt with it had already dealt with it. It actually had nothing to do with First Uncle. In addition to the building accident, there were also problems with some factories and bridges, some of which involved lives. Chapter 1403. When these incidents were pieced together, it seemed like an unlucky year. Most importantly, these incidents happened recently, and Jing Yunzhao could vaguely guess the other party's intentions. However, to confirm, Jing Yunzhao still opened the letter. The letter was printed, and Jing Yunzhao read it carefully. The moment she opened the letter, she was furious. The contents of the letter did not mention who the other party was, but there were some vague hints that made them think of Jean Iran. Jean Iran's motive was very simple. He wanted Su Yuanza to publicly take responsibility for this matter and then resign. Resigning was only one of the reasons. The main problem was that once he took responsibility, it meant that he had to be punished. At that time, it would be troublesome. As the mayor of Jingdu, her eldest uncle was under a lot of pressure. If there were any major incidents that caused many casualties, someone would have to take responsibility to prevent the anger of the public. However, this method of taking responsibility was not blind. If her eldest uncle was responsible for the incidents and did not do it, he should be punished. However, the problem was that the contents of the letter were all accusations. If her eldest uncle was forced to step down from his position, no one would be able to hold on to his position. Furthermore, she was certain that no one was more suitable than her eldest uncle as the leader. He did not lack money, so he would not touch the bottom line. He was shrewd and would rarely be schemed against. Although he was ambitious, he always knew when to advance and retreat. He was also extremely righteous. Jean Iran could not find any fault with her eldest uncle, so he wanted to force dirty water on him. It was extremely hateful. However, the other party also stated that if her eldest uncle was not willing, Su Hong would completely disappear from this world. From the looks of it, the other party should have known that Su Hong was her eldest uncle's son. Otherwise, he would not have gambled with him. Thinking about it carefully, Shen Shi knew about Su Hong's identity. Furthermore, Shen Shi was in contact with Jean Iran. It was not strange that Jean Iran knew the truth from her. Jing Yunzhao read the letter for a long time. The more she read, the angrier she became. This Jean Iran was really ruthless. He actually wanted her to choose one of the two, Su Hong and Wang Rishan. Jean Iran gave her 3 days to consider. 3 days later, he wanted his eldest uncle to announce his decision. He also wanted her to board another cruise ship alone and head to the international waters. If first uncle was unwilling to take responsibility, then Su Hong would die in 3 days. If first uncle agreed, and she did not agree to go, then Wang Ro-chun would not be able to come back alive. Even if Su Hong was alive, he would definitely not be a normal person. Jean Yiran also knew that Wang Rushan was not important to her, so he added Su Hong as a bargaining chip. I agree to resign publicly as long as Hong comes back. However, Zhao, once you reach the sea, you will be surrounded by darkness. Even if you grow a pair of wings, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape. So, you should stay at home for the next few days. I think Li Xiaoyan can understand why you don't agree to save Wang Rushan. As for Hong as long as she's alive, nothing else matters, Su Yuantek said. How can first uncle be sure that he won't go back on his words after you resign? Jing Yunzhao retorted, we're in his hands. Whatever he wants us to do, it's up to him to decide. Even if we made an agreement beforehand, it doesn't count. Chapter 1404. After hearing Jing Yunzhao's words, Su Yuantek rubbed his forehead. I don't think Jean Yiran is going to stay in the country any longer. Due to his frequent actions recently, the government has been suppressing him severely. His nests have been purged several times. Furthermore, he kills people every few days. Although we haven't found any evidence, it's true that he was the one who gave the orders. Therefore, the forces around him are divided. Su Yuanze analyzed. How could he not be on guard against someone like Jean Yiran? He sent a lot of people to monitor him, even on the day Su Hong went missing. His confidants were all under Jean Yiran's control. He really didn't know how Jean Yiran succeeded. Originally, according to his calculations, Jean Yiran would definitely become a general without an army in less than 3 months. Unfortunately, Su Yuanze sighed and said, speaking of which, it's strange. Your cousin's skills are not bad, and he has some pills you gave him. In addition, he's also equipped with a gun. Under normal circumstances, it's impossible for him to be taken away. Jing Yunzhao treated her Biaoji wholeheartedly. She knew that he was interested in Chinese martial arts, so she taught him some traditional martial arts. Because he had a solid foundation, he learned it very well. Normally, it wouldn't be a problem for him to deal with a few martial arts practitioners. But this time, he actually fell silently. First uncle, there's a doctor by Jean Yiran's side. If I'm not mistaken, she should be Wan Xiaoxia, who grew up in the Li family. Wan Xiaoxia's godson is a serial killer. Cousin brother was the one who arrested Jean Yiran. Cousin brother was even praised for his achievements. It's possible that Jean Yiran targeted cousin brother because of his personal grudge. After all, cousin brother is much easier to deal with. Jing Yunzhao glanced at her first uncle and continued, when you mentioned Biaoji's skills, it reminded me of something. Wan Xiaoxia's godson's martial arts are especially good. Could it be that Wan Xiaoxia taught him? We didn't connect Wan Xiaoxia and Jean Yiran before. If we calculate according to this, everything makes sense. Although Wan Xiaoxia hated her father, she also loved him very much. However, she hated him thoroughly. If she died, her father would be in great pain. It could be considered as revenge. The people around Jean Yiran were all being monitored by his eldest uncle, but Wan Xiaoxia was not. Back then, the serial killer's kung fu was better than Jean Yiran's cousin, so Wan Xiaoxia was definitely not weak. It was reasonable that she could catch him. Jean Yiran, Wan Xiaoxia, and Yi Chu, these 3 people are on the same side. Jing Yunzhao's frown gradually loosened as she quickly added, Jean Yiran used our weakness, but it's not like we can't use theirs as well. As far as I know, Wan Xiaoxia and Jean Yiran are both alone. It's not an exaggeration to say that they are impregnable, Su Yuanqing said. If they're really Wan Xiaoxia, they wouldn't kill me and uncle's cousin. Her mother's family's too. Her his mother's, but I'm her to say. TSS Tuz's ashes? There should be some, right? Since his mother was alive, there should be traces left behind. We don't have to control everything. We just need to find out more about it. If we have no other choice, we can use it as a means. As for Wan Xiaoxia, she kidnapped cousin because of that serial killer's son. Moreover, Wan Xiaoxia was raised by Li Wenba's family. According to my father, she doesn't know anything about her identity. Since Jean Yuan was willing to do anything, she can't just focus on righteousness when dealing with people like him. Chapter 1405. If Jean Yuan didn't capture Su Hong and Wang Rishan, she wouldn't have thought of using this method. Su Yuantek and Su Wenqing looked at each other and smiled bitterly. We were worried that you wouldn't like this method, so we didn't mention it. Since you've said so, we won't hide it from you. Jean Yuan isn't alone. After his mother died, he was sent to live with his relatives for 3 years. Although he didn't have a good life, he had a cousin who took good care of him. However, after Jean Yuan's power expanded, he wasn't polite to his cousin. His aunt and uncle who raised him had a miserable life. However, despite Jean Yuan's bad attitude, his cousin lived a good life. She had a stable job and didn't suffer any revenge. These words were also reminding Jing Yunzhao that although Jean Yuan didn't seem to have any relationship with his cousin, he was actually protecting her. There's one more thing. I've checked on his cousin. All these years, this woman has been going to the grave for him. In addition, this woman's job is very ordinary, but she's never short of money. The most important thing is that most people who offend her don't have a good ending. If it wasn't for Jean Yuan's help, she wouldn't have been able to do it. The two brothers did not go into detail, but if they were to use this cousin to threaten Jean Yuan, they would not have any qualms about it. On one hand, they would be able to get rid of her. On the other hand, that girl had been spoiled by Jean Yuan to the point that she was extremely scheming. When they were investigating her, the moment they saw her photo, they thought that she was shy and bashful. However, after looking into the details, they realized that she was simply a ferocious tiger. When Jing Yunzhao heard Su Wenqing's words, he knew that there was something wrong with the girl. However, he didn't think too much about it. He was just using her to negotiate with Jean Yuan. He didn't really want to do anything to her. Have you guys already subdued him? Jing Yunzhao asked. The two brothers nodded. I'll announce my resignation 3 days later. If Jean Yuan doesn't let Su Hong off, I'll bury his mother's grave and his cousin's grave, Su Yuantek said coldly. When it came to his son, it wasn't the time for him to be soft-hearted. Jing Yunzhao pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Having an extra layer of protection is a good thing, but I'll have to trouble uncle to investigate Wan Xiaoxia. Regarding her, I feel that father should know a little more. Maybe he'll be able to find some clues, Jing Yunzhao suggested. I can handle it. But Zhao, from your attitude, it seems like you really want to go? Because of that Wang Rishan? When Wang Rishan was mentioned, the two brothers felt very uncomfortable. They Wang's mother's is ancestors ancestry. Even if I go to the international waters, I don't think anything will happen to me. Besides, I'm not doing it for Wang Rishan. I'm doing it for my cousin and Xiaoren. Jing Yunzhao paused for a while before he continued. Even if you can save his life, it's too cruel for him to become a cripple. All these years, the Su family has let my cousin and aunt down. Now that I've finally found him, I can't let him be implicated. As for Wang Rishan, Grandpa Li has already decided how to deal with her. Before that, she's still Li Xiaoyun's mother. I don't want Li Xiaoyun and I to be labeled as unfilial. Chapter 1406. Jing Yunzhao said very seriously, which made the two people in front of her look a little dignified. Xiao Zhao, it's true that the Su family let Su Hong down, but they also let you down. If we found you earlier, you wouldn't have suffered so much before. Su Wenqing immediately said. They couldn't give up Jing Yunzhao to save Su Hong. Second uncle, now it's not just Su Hong's life that's at stake. Think about it, if something happens to him, how can Aunt live in the future? There's also the old man, he finally got a grandson that he can take a liking to. If he were to become a cripple, would he be able to bear it? Jing Yunzhao asked. We can let you do whatever you want with other things, but not this time. If you go to Jean Yuan's cruise ship, his people will be everywhere. Even if you have wings, you can't escape. You know in your heart which one is more important to the old man, Su Hong or you. And don't forget, you are now the only heir of the Jing family. You should put yourself first. Su Wenqing said firmly. Jing Yunzhao had already weighed the pros and cons in her heart. If she was an ordinary person, considering the inheritance of the Jing family, she would choose to be selfish for once. She would never take the risk. But she had the space left by her ancestors, so it was absolutely no problem for her to save her life. Therefore, she wanted to try. But she couldn't tell her two uncles about this trump card. At this time, it was a matter of principle. Su Wenqing didn't have his usual sloppy appearance. His serious appearance made people a little nervous. Su Yuantek was the same. Jing Yunzhao also understood. Both of them felt that they had already lost money to her mother, so they couldn't owe her anymore. Let me go. I can guarantee that I will come back unscathed. You all know that I have martial arts to protect myself. I also know how to use a spear and some pharmacology. If I am really besieged, a few poisons will be enough. Besides, have you all forgotten about Li Xiaoyan? The number of dangerous places he's been to these past few years is too many to count. With him helping me from behind, there'll definitely be no problems. Jing Yunzhao sighed and continued. Li Xiaoyan and his brothers were said to be omnipotent. Protecting her was a piece of cake. However, even if she said so, the two people in front of her still looked indifferent. I can obviously save my cousin, but if I harm him because I can't go, then I won't be at ease for the rest of my life. Jing Yunzhao muttered to himself. Both of them knew her temperament. Once she had decided on something, she would never change her mind. Especially when it involved the safety of his loved ones, there was no room for discussion. Think about it carefully. There are still 3 days. Su Yuantek glanced at her and said, We will also talk to Li Xiaoyan and see how confident he is. Only then did Jing Yunzhao nod her head. Because they were worried that Jing Yunzhao would act recklessly, the two of them directly let her live in the Su family. Jing Yunzhao had no choice but to agree. Li Xiaoyan had always been with her, so without the two uncles' invitation, he also came over. The 3 men chatted for a long time in the study. Jing Yunzhao didn't know what they talked about, but after they came out, the 2 uncles also agreed. What did you say to them? Jing Yunzhao was a little surprised and asked Li Xiaoyan. I just said that I will accompany you. Li Xiaoyan smiled. Jing Yunzhao was stunned for a moment and didn't quite understand. The next moment, Li Xiaoyan continued, Since you said that Wan Xiaoxia and Genie Ran are together, then if it's really her, she would definitely want her father to appear as well. I'll tell your 2 uncles that I'll pretend to be Jing Tianyi. Chapter 1407. Jing Tianyi didn't know martial arts and only knew medical skills. He wasn't a threat to Genie Ran and the others at all. Capturing one more person was a good thing for Wan Xiaoxia and Genie Ran, so they couldn't refuse. Even if you're with them, Uncle and the others shouldn't be so straightforward. I know a lot of pirates. Li Xiaoyan directly said, The other party's location isn't accurate, so it's not good for me to take action. When we arrive, the location will be immediately sent out. It'll be foolproof. Jing Yunzhao suddenly felt a little embarrassed. How do you know them? I've done missions to fight pirates, so your husband has some prestige at sea. Li Xiaoyan pinched Jing Yunzhao's face and said narcissistically. Jing Yunzhao looked at him speechlessly, but at the same time, she felt some admiration. She heard from the old man that before he met her, Li Xiaoyan would go to Huaning County to sweep the tombs for a short time every year. Usually, he would do missions everywhere. Even if he didn't have any missions and was free, he would go out by himself and deal with the things he didn't like. His life was very exciting and busy. But at this time, after hearing what he said, she felt a lot more at ease. After all, she had never been to the sea, and her only confidence was her space. But now, with Li Xiaoyan, she felt more at ease. Soon, 3 days passed. Su Yuantek did what he said. He took responsibility for those documents and resigned, causing an uproar. Those who didn't understand the situation scolded Su Yuanza for being a corrupt official, but there were also some people who knew the rules of the officialdom and knew that those accidents had nothing to do with Su Yuanza. They only felt that he was either under pressure or under great threat. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to do such a stupid thing. But in any case, The reaction of the citizens was not small, and the forces behind Su Yuantek were even more shocked. But the matter was a foregone conclusion, and everyone was busy thinking about how to deal with it. At this time, Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyan arrived at the agreed place, which was Jean Iran's bar. At this time, Li Xiaoyan had disguised himself as Jing Tianyi and was sitting in a wheelchair. Although the mask was not as good as the real person, it was not a problem as long as one did not look carefully. Moreover, her father had not seen the sun for many years and did not like to look up at people. Usually, he would subconsciously lower his head, so it was easier for him to disguise himself now. As soon as the two of them appeared, a woman walked out from the darkness. When Jing Yunzhao saw that person, his gaze turned cold. "Ah, Jing Yunzhao, you really came. You really aren't afraid of death. It seems like those two uncles of yours don't dote on you that much. For the sake of the only male descendant in the family, didn't they still throw you away so easily?" Yi Chu coldly said. There were a few burly men standing behind her. They were all dressed in black and looked a little scary. Yi Chu's unrestrained manner was like a completely different person compared to before. Jing Yunzhao felt a sense of familiarity from her cold smile. Her memory slowly recovered and overlapped with a figure. In her previous life, in prison, Qiao Hongya walked in front of her like this. That arrogant and cold smile made people's hair stand on end. "Could it be you are Qiao Hongya?" Jing Yunzhao asked. Qiao Hongya, Yi Chu. Even their names were similar. In addition, her height and figure were similar to her previous life. After all, when Qiao Hongya left in this life, she was still young, and her height was not fixed. Chapter 1408. When Yi Chu heard Jing Yunzhao call out his name, he suddenly laughed. His pair of eyes seemed to be burning with flames, revealing a hint of hatred. "You've finally figured out who I am." Qiao Hongya smiled and said fiercely, "Because of you, our family was like a rat crossing the street. I was expelled from school and forced into a corner by my father. If I wasn't smart enough to leave that damned place in time, I'm afraid I would have been tortured beyond recognition." Her father was a mercenary. If she didn't escape, then her fate would have been the same as Jing Yunzhao. She would have washed and cooked every day, served him and her brother every day. Without her beautiful face and temperament, she would have been reduced to an ugly and stupid woman. In the end, she would have been married off to a useless man by her father, wasting her life away. You've been living a glorious life these past few years. You entered a university as the top scholar, found your family, and your career became more and more prosperous. Even your love life is so perfect. But do you know how I've been living these past few years? Qiao Hongya stared at Jing Yunzhao. The corner of her mouth hooked up, and she smiled cruelly. "When I just came out, I was cheated. I didn't have a single cent left. I had to fight with stray dogs for food, fight with beggars under the bridge for blankets. When I finally found a job, I was chased out again and again because of my age. For someone like Jing Yunzhao, she would never experience the feeling of being reduced to a beggar, or even living together with a group of filthy people, where men and women couldn't be distinguished. If she didn't have a pretty face, she wouldn't have lived to this day." "Then you deserve it." Jing Yunzhao coldly spat out a few words. "Then what about you? Don't you deserve it now? You should know what happens when you get on a cruise ship in international waters." Qiao Hongya immediately retorted. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao only felt that Qiao Hongya was extremely sad. When she escaped in the middle of the night, Qiao Weiman couldn't catch up and broke her legs. At that time, although she still hated Qiao Hongya, it wasn't very strong. She even thought that as long as they didn't meet again in this life, she wouldn't hold on to the past. As time passed, Qiao Hongya slowly faded from her memory. She never thought that she would appear again in this way. And now, she completely understood why Yi Chu kept throwing flirtatious glances at her man. Qiao Hongya always liked to fight for and snatch her things, not to mention a high-quality man like Li Xiaoyan. But unfortunately, her man's taste wasn't that bad. "My fate isn't up to you, but I can imagine your fate," Jing Yunzhao said coldly. This time, she wouldn't let Xiao Hongye. International waters. Wasn't that place was not bad. At least she wouldn't have a chance to escape. You're only to be stubborn. Xiao Hongye rolled her eyes, then glanced at Jing Tianyi. You want to bring this trash along with you? You're really stupid. But I'll fulfill your wish. Previously, when they were capturing Wang Ruochun and Su Hong, they had already thought of capturing Jing Tianyi as well. However, Jing Yunzhao's protection of Jing Tianyi was so tight that they couldn't even get close to him. Furthermore, Jing Tianyi didn't like to go out, so they couldn't even find a chance to capture him. Now that they had sent him over, if Auntie Xia knew, she would definitely be very happy. Xiao Hongye was like a rooster that had won a fight. She couldn't wait to raise her tail to the sky. However, she knew that Jing Yunzhao knew martial arts, so she restrained herself. She only invited him to the car and drove towards the ferry. It wasn't safe to make a move on Jing Yunzhao on land. Xiao Hongye was very clear about this. Chapter 1409. At this moment, even though Xiao Hongye couldn't wait to kill Jing Yunzhao immediately, she was also very clear about Jing Yunzhao's weight. She knew that the chances of success right now weren't high, so she obediently endured it. Jing Yunzhao and the disguised Li Xiaoyun boarded the cruise ship together and slowly approached the original route. The cruise ship wasn't big, and there was no one else inside except for Jean Iran's subordinates. It would take quite some time to reach the international waters, but during this process, Xiao Hongye clearly didn't have any intention of taking care of Jing Yunzhao. She didn't even prepare any food. However, for Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun, they weren't hungry at all. Xiao Hongye couldn't control her movements at all, so Jing Yunzhao could also catch some seafood to fill his stomach. The only pity was that she couldn't use the things in her space. After all, Xiao Hongye had already checked before coming here. Both parties had already agreed that she wasn't allowed to bring any weapons, so it was obvious what she had on her. Xiao Hongye threw away all the bottles and jars in her bag. If she needed medicine later, she would have to think of other ways. Fortunately, she and Li Xiaoyun had taken many kinds of antidotes in advance, so it was guaranteed that Wan Xiaoxia's medicine wouldn't hurt them. Of course, while Jing Yunzhao was catching seafood, she was also doing something else without leaving a trace. There were countless things in the world that could be used to make medicine. There were things that flew in the sky, and things that swam in the sea. Medicine and poison were inseparable. Jing Yunzhao could also obtain a lot of benefits from these things. It could be considered as collecting resources in advance. The waves came one after another, and the air was filled with a thick, salty smell. It was Jing Yunzhao's first time going out to sea, but he didn't feel any discomfort. On the other hand, Xiao Hongye's face was pale. She was actually suffering from seasickness. Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but find it funny. After all, Xiao Hongye was so aggressive just a second ago, and now she was so weak. It was really an eye-opener for her. Jing Yunzhao, you're a doctor, right? Xiao Hongye looked at Jing Yunzhao after vomiting. That's right. As long as you dare to let me treat you, I'll be more than happy to. Jing Yunzhao sneered. Do you think I'm stupid? I'm just asking. Xiao Hongye turned her head and said disdainfully. The feeling of seasickness was too unbearable. At first, she did have the intention of letting Jing Yunzhao prescribe medicine. But after thinking about it, even if her body temporarily didn't have any problems after taking her medicine, it didn't mean that Jing Yunzhao wouldn't do anything to her. It wasn't easy for her to survive until now. If she was harmed by Jing now, then it would be too much of a loss. Jing Yunzhao sneered. You've gotten a lot older, but your brain is getting more and more stupid. I really don't know if you dug out your brain while you were changing your face. I know you're eloquent, but don't be happy for too long. Your father is still in my hands. Do you believe that I'll immediately have someone throw him overboard? Xiao Hongye immediately said angrily. If you want to throw him away, then throw him away. But if something happens to him, everyone on this boat can forget about returning alive. At worst, we'll just break up. With you guys buried with us, my Biaoji and Wang Ruochun won't be wronged. Jing Yunzhao didn't show any signs of fear. If he admitted defeat because of Qiao Hongya's words, then he would really be suppressed by her. Dealing with people like Qiao Hongya was no different from gambling. He couldn't show the slightest bit of being controlled in front of the other party. Otherwise, Qiao Hongya would really get what she wanted. Chapter 1410. Qiao Hongya also knew what she had to do. Although Jing Yunzhao seemed to be in her hands, Jing Yunzhao knew martial arts. Now that Wan Xiaoxia and Jeannie Ran were not around, she could not act recklessly. Otherwise, the possibility of Jing Yunzhao controlling her was very high. Moreover, if she really killed Jing Yunzhao, Jeannie Ran would definitely not let her off. That man yearned for Jing Yunzhao day and night. Qiao Hongya suddenly became silent. Jing Yunzhao sat at the side with a trace of a smile on his face. Unbeknownst to these people, he took out silver needles dipped in poison from his space. Taking advantage of the fact that the people around were not paying attention, he quickly flicked them out. These silver needles were extremely thin. Even if they were to pierce into a person's body, they would only feel a slight numbness. It would not cause people to think too much. Although he could not take out other eye-catching things from his space, he could take out the poison silver needles. He could even throw out as many as he wanted. There was still a lot of time left. Even if he wanted to stab everyone, it was more than enough. Of course, since he already had this thought, Jing Yunzhao did not hold back. He got up and walked around. Almost everyone he saw had been poisoned. This was a slow-acting poison. The toxicity was not very strong. They would slowly feel uncomfortable. After a day, they would feel weak all over. However, on the surface, they would not be able to see anything. When it was time to take action, they would have almost no lethality. Even if they had guns on them, they would not be able to aim and shoot. Everyone else had been secretly tormented by Jing Yunzhao. Naturally, Qiao Hongya would not be let off. Although Qiao Hongya spent most of her time sleeping in her room, as the person in charge of this cruise ship, there were many places where she needed to appear. After Jing Yunzhao found an opportunity, he directly flicked a silver needle into her lower back. Hiss! The moment the silver needle came into contact, Qiao Hongya subconsciously touched it. She frowned. "Miss Yi, what happened to you?" The person beside her quickly asked. "It's nothing. Maybe I was bitten by a bug. It's nothing serious." Qiao Hongya did not care. After all, the pain was very light. Moreover, it only lasted for a moment. It was like being bitten by a mosquito. Jing Yunzhao chuckled when he heard her words. The poison used to deal with Qiao Hongya was naturally different from other poisons. Wasn't she seasick? Then he would make her completely dizzy. The symptoms of poisoning were similar to seasickness. Even if he asked the doctor on the ship to examine her personally, he wouldn't be able to find anything. Once Jing Yunzhao took action, the effect was naturally extraordinary. Not long after, Qiao Hongya once again vomited until she was hovering between life and death. She could only lie on the bed and talk nonsense. She didn't know why, but she always felt that Jing Yunzhao seemed to be her nemesis. Before she met Jing Yunzhao, everything was going smoothly for her. But now, the closer she was to him, the more uncomfortable she felt. Qiao Hongya groaned for a long time. By the time Jean Iran's cruise ship docked, Qiao Hongya's face was already pale beyond recognition. The two cruises met, and Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyan were also brought onto the big ship. "Aunt Xia, quickly take a look at me. I'm very seasick. It's very uncomfortable." Upon seeing Wan Xiaoxia, Qiao Hongya immediately said. Jing Yunzhao raised her head and glanced at the woman, only to see that she was wearing a red fur coat, as if she was celebrating something. At the same time, Wan Xiaoxia also looked over, as if she was suspecting that Jing Yunzhao had secretly attacked her. Thus, Jing Yunzhao quickly grabbed Qiao Hongya's wrist and carefully examined it. Chapter 1411. Wan Xiaoxia's medical skills were very good, and Jing Yunzhao wouldn't be so stupid as to show it in front of her. She had already guessed that Wan Xiaoxia would check on Qiao Hongya just in case, so she didn't poison Qiao Hongya too much. Along the way, The poison had almost subsided, so the possibility of finding out was not high. Sure enough, Wan Xiaoxia's expression became better when she didn't find anything wrong with Qiao Hongya's body. She smiled at Qiao Hongya and said, "It's okay, there's medicine on the ship. I'll get someone to boil a bowl for you later. You'll be fine after drinking it." "Thank you, Aunt Xia." In front of Wan Xiaoxia, Qiao Hongya was as obedient as a cat. Not only her, even the man named Jeannie Ran was the same. His attitude was polite and respectful. It wasn't the first time Jing Yunzhao saw Jeannie Ran, but the number of times they met was very few. It had been a long time since they last met, and she almost forgot what he looked like. Jeannie Ran was very handsome, but he had a gloomy and evil aura. His whole body exuded a creepy aura, and his eyes were sharp. Although he was good-looking, in Jing Yunzhao's eyes, he was a little worse than Li Xiaoyun. Li Xiaoyun was a soldier, and under the same expression, he gave off a solemn feeling, which made people subconsciously restrain themselves. Jeannie Ran, on the other hand, had a little bit of a vile character. No matter how good-looking he was, it was tainted by this aura, making him look strange and evil. Miss Jing is indeed a person with backbone. You're actually willing to take the risk for your cousin. I really admire you. Jean Yiran smiled. As he spoke, he waved his hand and invited Jing Yunzhao into the cabin like a gentleman. Jing Yunzhao glanced at him, then pushed Jing Tianyi in the wheelchair and said, "Mr. Jean seems to have been waiting for this day for a long time, right?" What entered her eyes was a group of men dressed in black. Each of them had a gun in their hands, and they were on guard at any time. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult to escape. It has indeed been a long time, but I'm very satisfied with today's results. Jean Yiran's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. He looked at her with a look of amazement and sizing her up, making Jing Yunzhao feel that this person was a little wretched. So what if he was rich and powerful? His mind was dirty, and his appearance was a reflection of his heart. She couldn't like this kind of temperament no matter what. "Mr. Jean, now that I'm here, shouldn't you let me meet Su Hong and Wang Rishan?" Jing Yunzhao asked. "Of course," Jean Yiran said. Wan Xiaoxia didn't say anything, but she kept staring at Jing Yunzhao. From her eyes, Jing Yunzhao didn't find anything fishy. It was obvious that even she couldn't tell that the Jing Tianyi in front of her was fake. Jing Yunzhao found it a little ridiculous. The so-called infatuation that she spoke of was perhaps just an obsession. Perhaps she really did love her father, but it was more of the thought that she had been instilled in her since she was young that she would not marry anyone else. In her eyes, her father should have been her husband and belonged to her for the rest of his life. However, he was intercepted by someone else, so she could not bear it. Otherwise, how could she not understand his aura and everything about him if she truly loved him? If it were her, even if Li Xiaoyun changed his appearance and voice, she would still be able to sense it. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun were led by Jean Yiran to the bottom cabin. Su Hong and Wang Rishan were locked in the deepest room of the cruise ship. It was a little dark, and the sound of machinery could be heard all around. Chapter 14:12. As soon as the door opened, Jing Yunzhao's heart burned with anger. She saw that Su Hong was hung up in the air, and Wang Ro-chun was similarly tied up. Her mouth was even sealed with tape. Both of them had quite a few injuries on their bodies. It seemed like they had been taught a lesson. Su Hong's breathing was weak, but both of them were still conscious. When they saw Jing Yunzhao, they reacted violently. Jean Yiran asked his men to remove the tape from their mouths. "Yunzhao, why are you here? Did this bastard threaten you?" Su Hong's eyes were red with anger. He knew what Jing Yunzhao meant to the Su family. In terms of existence, Jing Yunzhao was more qualified to live than him. Hence, he never thought that Jing Yunzhao would appear here. After all, she was so smart. The fact that she was by Jean Yiran's side meant that Jean Yiran was using her as a threat. When he thought about how he had implicated the Su family, Su Hong was filled with disgust. Su Yuantek treated him well and treated him like his own son. Now, he had implicated Su Yuantek's beloved niece. At this moment, Su Hong was filled with guilt. On the other hand, Wang Ro-chun had a completely different reaction. Just as she was able to open her mouth, she immediately started crying. "Let me go. I'm begging you to let me go. Jing Yunzhao, you're so cruel. I'm Xiaoyan's mother. How could you treat me like this?" Jing Yunzhao rolled his eyes. He had never seen such a stupid person. She had been captured for so long and she still didn't know why she was captured? Was that huge head just an ornament? TSK, 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 look at how his mother treated you. Do you still think you can marry him? Miss Jing, as long as you're willing to be with me, I promise to give you the best in the world. I can even help you vent your anger by throwing this woman into the sea to feed the sharks. What do you think? Jean Iran said with a smile. Jing Yunzhao felt disgusted. Who do you think you are? You want me to be with you? I've never been interested in trash. You'll know in the future whether I'm trash or not. Jean Iran sneered, then glanced at Su Hong and said, Your uncle seems like a righteous man, but he's just an ordinary man. He slept with 2 women, and it wasn't enough for him to marry one. Now he wants to marry a second woman. He lied to his own son and didn't even dare to admit it. Isn't it reasonable for me to ask him to step down? Hearing this, Su Hong was stunned. Jean Iran, you don't have to sow discord between us. That's right, my eldest uncle did hide the truth, but he was only worried that his wife and son would leave. Back then, Shunshi was full of evil tricks and secretly replaced Shin Tong as Mrs. Su. Even my eldest uncle didn't know about it. Now, he's trying to set things right. Most importantly, he's sincere towards Shin Tong. Why would he need an outsider like you to do something unnecessary? Also, back then, Shunshi harmed Shin Tong so many times in the dark. Wasn't it all because of your help that she was able to do it silently? Jing Yunzhao looked like she was retorting, but in reality, she was also explaining to Su Hong. Su Hong was a very reasonable person. Even if he felt uncomfortable, he could understand if he thought about it carefully. After all, although his eldest uncle and Shin Tong had kept a low profile when they got married, he had always been very gentle and devoted to Shin Tong. He definitely wasn't pretending. A person's sincerity could be seen from their daily life. How could it be destroyed by a few words from an outsider? At this moment, Su Hong's eyes darkened and his face was blank. He seemed to be in a dilemma. He was shocked by the conversation between the two and didn't know how to react. Chapter 1413. Su Hong had always respected Su Yuantek and felt that it was a pity that he was not a biological son of the Su family. However, he had long gotten used to his current identity and lifestyle. Now that Jing Yunzhao had suddenly told him that he was indeed Su Yuantek's biological son, it would be strange if he could accept it. When he was young, he did have some expectations and longed for his biological father. He had also learned from his mother that his parents were together by accident and that his father, whose identity was unknown, did not even know of his existence. Even though he was unwilling to accept this situation, he slowly stopped thinking about it when he thought about the hardships his mother had gone through over the years. However, the words biological father had always been in his heart. After all, there was no one in this world who did not want to know who their parents were. Even if their parents were not successful people, even if they had no power or influence, they were still related by blood. Occasionally, he would still have some wild thoughts in his heart. Is it true? Yunzhao, is what you said true? Uncle Su is my biological father? Su Hong asked with some difficulty. His lips were pale and chapped, probably due to the lack of food and water. Jing Yunzhao was in a difficult position. If he had known that Su Hong would find out the truth under such circumstances, he would have made things clear earlier. That way, he would have been able to tell him the details. That's right. You are my biological cousin. However, we didn't mean to hide it from you. We were mainly afraid that you and Aunt would suspect Uncle's intentions after knowing the truth, Jing Yunzhao said helplessly. At this moment, Jean Iran sneered. Su Yuantek has a good plan. He has always been a scheming person. Back then, when Su Yuantek thought that Su Yu was his biological son, how did he treat him? Just because his son was useless, he sent him to a quiet place to stay. He had to face 4 walls for the rest of his life, and his legs were crippled. His life was not easy. Miss Jing, if your cousin wasn't somewhat capable and your aunt wasn't an extremely beautiful woman, do you think your uncle would have brought them back? Not to mention the mother and son, even you are the same. Jean Yiran looked at Jing Yunzhao and laughed arrogantly. Miss Jing brought Yunling medicine with her when she was reunited with her family, right? Mayor Su knows that you are the chairman of Yunling medicine. That's why he's so polite to you. Otherwise, do you think an orphan like you can get his love? Jing Yunzhao was stunned, not because of her uncle, but because of Jean Yiran's understanding of her. He even knew about the situation when she was reunited with her relatives. It seemed like he had been lurking behind the scenes for quite some time. However, when he thought about it, she was under his control in the past, and it was enough for him to know everything about her. I know better than you what kind of person my uncle is. Jean Yiran, the reason why you said that is because your father lost to my uncle. And strictly speaking, your father really isn't a good person. He deserved to die in prison. Jing Yunzhao recalled what her uncle had said before and continued. Back then, it was your father who drugged my uncle and Shintong in order to let the media catch a stain on my uncle's reputation. In the end, he didn't expect Shi to interfere, and in the end, he failed on the verge of success. It was because of your father's mischief that the Su family let a wolf into their house for so many years. It also caused Shintong to suffer the grievances of having a child out of wedlock. Isn't it natural for him to pay the price for this? Don't you think it's ridiculous for you to seek justice for him? Chapter 14:14. Although Jean Yiran looked normal on the surface, his heart was twisted. He had lived a good life these years, and his status was feared by many. To be able to reach such a high position, he should be aware of the dangers in the political world. You have to fight, and the losers are always in the wrong. Moreover, his father was courting death, and he could not blame anyone else. You have a sharp tongue. Jean Yiran smiled and reached his hand towards her face, as if he was going to pinch her chin. However, Jing Yunzhao wasn't your typical weak girl. She didn't give him any face, and directly turned her head away. Jean Yiran's hand froze in midair. His expression was extremely ugly, but after a few seconds, he put it down. While he was at it, he dusted off his clothes and casually said, "My father lost, so he deserved to die. However, I don't necessarily lose." Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips slightly. This person was so competitive that he did not care about right or wrong at all. Now that I'm here, shouldn't you keep your promise and release Su Hong and Wang Rishan? Jing Yunzhao asked. What if I don't? Jean Yiran smirked sinisterly. Jing Yunzhao sneered and said, Mr. Jean, do you think I'll come here unprepared? If Su Hong doesn't return in one piece, I can guarantee that your cousin and your mother's grave will disappear from this world. I've always been a principled person. However, if the other party broke the rules of the game first, I don't mind crossing the line. As expected, Jean Yiran's face changed slightly after Jing Yunzhao finished speaking. However, after a while, he laughed maniacally and said, Not bad. I like you more and more. Don't worry, I can let him board another cruise ship and leave. However, Miss Jing, don't you think it's a pity? If you take the opportunity to kill Wang Rishan, only you and I will know. This woman is so detestable. It's not a good thing for you to live. Initially, he only wanted to make Jing Yunzhao appear. As for Su Hong, it did not matter if he killed him or not. He also knew what kind of people Su Yuantek and Jing Yunzhao were, so he was not afraid to leave with his cousin. Just as she said, as long as he followed the rules of the game, there would not be any problems. As a person who wanted to make a living, he still had to have some morals. Moreover, Su Hong was not his target at all, so it did not matter. At this moment, only Jing Yunzhao and Jean Yiran were present. Li Xiaoyan had already been arranged to another room. Xiao Hongya was guarding the door and did not enter. As for Wan Xiaoxia, Jing Yunzhao guessed that the woman must have gone to find Li Xiaoyan, who was disguised as Jing Tianyi. Just like what Jean Yiran had said, it was indeed a good time to kill Wang Rishan. However, she was not a bloodthirsty killer. No matter how incompetent Wang Rishan was, she was still a member of the Li family, and it was not her place to punish her. Thank you for your good intentions, but it's a pity that I'm not you. I don't have the hobby of killing people for no reason. Jing Yunzhao sneered. I didn't expect you to make such a big sacrifice for Li Xiaoyan. Jin Yiran smacked his lips and said, We only said that we would let Su Hong go back alive, but we did not say buy one get one free. This Wang Rishan, you can't take her away. Jing Yunzhao frowned. Jin Yiran, what are you trying to do? Don't you know what I'm trying to do? Jin Yiran smiled, his eyes gloomy and deep. My uncle has already done as you said. Jing Yunzhao said, That's right, but we still have to wait. Let's see if your uncle's life is long enough. Jin Yiran said. Chapter 14-15. Hearing Jin Yiran's words, Jing Yunzhao knew that he must have done something behind her back. After all, Jin Yiran had a grudge against her eldest uncle, but he didn't have a deep grudge against her. There was no reason for him to let her eldest uncle off and chase after her. Did you ask your men to take action when I arrived? Jing Yunzhao asked. You're quite smart. Jin Yiran glanced at her and smiled. You're right. From the moment you boarded the ship until now, there should be a lot of people who have been poisoned. Although they are all drug addicts, it's a matter of life and death. I asked my men to tell the public that you're the only person who can cure this drug. Guess what will happen? Jing Yunzhao frowned. She knew that Jin Yiran used to be in charge of the mafia and had done many illegal things. It was just that he wasn't caught. Now, as long as the drug was mixed with the drug addicts, it would be easy to get rid of them. She wasn't in the capital. Even if the poisoned people and the public searched 3 feet deep, they wouldn't be able to find her. When the time came, even if her eldest uncle explained that she couldn't show up, the public wouldn't believe him. They would only think that the Su family was selfish and that she was selfish. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Your eldest uncle had to take the drug in order to appease the public. If he didn't do so, there would be more drugs. In order to appease the public, the higher-ups will definitely choose to sacrifice your eldest uncle, Su Yuantek. Jin Yiran said slowly. However, Jing Yunzhao heaved a sigh of relief when she heard the words, large quantities of drugs. She had been gambling. Just in case, she had prepared a lot of things before she came. They were all targeted at poisons. She was also afraid that Jin Yiran and Wan Xiaoxia would cause too much trouble, so she had researched all the poisons that could be produced in large quantities. The antidote had long been prepared. However, those poisons had been modified. Although it could save Jin Yiran's life, she had to wait until she returned to the capital. In any case, the danger was reduced by more than half. Even if her eldest uncle was forced to take the poison, the possibility of him dying was not high. Jin Yiran and Wan Xiaoxia had underestimated her ability. Is that so? Jing Yunzhao sneered and said, Where did Wan Xiaoxia find the Jing clan's secret scripture? Do you think I don't know about the medicine inside? Hearing this, Jin Yiran's face stiffened. You grew up in a small place, so you didn't have the opportunity to learn the methods of the Jing clan, right? How would he know about the things in the Jing clan's secret manual? This woman was very smart. She must be lying to him. He had already planned everything. He would transfer Jing Yunzhao away, and Su Yuantek would be forced to take the drug and die. Even the other drug addicts would all die. When the time came, the Su family and the Jing family would be cursed by the citizens. Jing Yunzhao would be the same. No matter what the reason was, if he didn't appear in time to treat him, he would be labeled as a vicious and incompetent person. He would be hated by everyone. He would let nature take its course and leave with Jing Yunzhao. Mr. Jin, you don't seem to be a qualified hunter. If I don't know the Jing clan's medical skills, how can I be the successor of the Jing clan? Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but laugh. Let me guess, did you use all the manpower and money you left in the capital city to do this? That's ridiculous. It seems like you'll be a general without an army in the future. After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, she walked towards Su Hong and untied the ropes on his body. She dared to say this because she knew that Jin Yiran wouldn't dare to keep Su Hong. Besides, he would definitely confirm with the people in the capital city. Not much time had passed, so he wouldn't be able to get a result in such a short time. Jean Iran's face darkened, but he still pretended to be calm and sent Su Hong to another cruise ship. Chapter 14:16. Su Hong grabbed Jing Yunjiao's arm and refused to let go. Jing Yunjiao knew that even though Su Hong was suspicious of the Su family's motives, he was still the same person as before and would not be so heartless as to let her face it alone. However, keeping him around would only distract her. Hence, when Su Hong refused to get on the boat, Jing Yunjiao said, "Regardless of whether you believe me or not, there are some things that I have to make clear to you. I, eldest uncle, and everyone in the Su family treat you and your mother sincerely. Although eldest uncle is good at scheming, he doesn't treat his family that way. When you go back, you can ask around about how he treated Shen-Shi back then. You'll know that he doesn't treat Aunt like this because he wants to tie you down." Jing Yunjiao added, "Also, you can leave at ease. Aunt still doesn't know that you're in trouble. Don't forget how much she has sacrificed for you over the years. Now is not the time to be soft-hearted." With that, Jing Yunjiao forcibly broke free from Su Hong's grip. There was a smile on his face, and he was as confident as before. "Are you confident?" Su Hong asked in a low voice. He knew that he was not as capable as Jing Yunjiao. He couldn't even deal with Yuan Xiaoxia, so staying here would not be of any help to Jing Yunjiao. However, when he thought of leaving her alone, guilt flooded his heart. "Yes." Jing Yunjiao nodded. Jean Iran sneered behind them. Since Jing Yunjiao was here, he had no intention of letting her go back. Even if she wanted to go back, she had to become his woman and stand by his side willingly. Su Hong stared at Jing Yunjiao's eyes for a moment before he nodded. "Okay, be careful." He had also heard the conversation between Jean Iran and Jing Yunjiao. At this moment, he was worried about Su Yuantek's health. Since he couldn't keep her alive, there was no point in hesitating. Jing Yunjiao smiled as she helped Su Hong get on the boat and onto another cruise ship. Only the captain and a few crew members were left on the cruise ship. Not a single one of Jean Iran's men could be seen. Only then did Jing Yunjiao feel at ease. Seeing her cousin's figure getting further and further away, Jing Yunjiao decided to just turn around without any reluctance. After all, she was not going to die, so there was no need to be pretentious. "You're really open-minded." Jean Iran stood beside her. "Of course. Now that he's gone, I have a better chance of dealing with you, right?" Jing Yunjiao did not hold back. "What about your father and Wang Rishan?" "Jing Yunjiao, from the moment you boarded the cruise ship, you can only belong to me. The Su family can only end up like this. There won't be any accidents. I don't believe a single word you said. Tonight, I'll wait for you in the room. Clean yourself up. Otherwise, your father won't just cripple your legs," Jean Iran said coldly as he caressed her face. Jing Yunjiao felt disgusted. Jean Iran had already left after saying those words. Jing Yunjiao clenched her fists as she looked at the vast sea. Su Hong was gone, but that idiot Wang Rishan was still around. She was a problem. She and Li Xiaoran could definitely kill their way out and feed them to the fishes. But Wang Rishan, Jing Yunjiao's eyes darkened. The cruise ship was only so big, and Jean Iran did not control her movements. He only asked someone to follow her. At this time, Wang Rishan was moved from the lowest room to the VIP room on the cruise ship. Jing Yunjiao walked in without hesitation. At this time, Wang Rishan knew that Jing Yunjiao was here to save her, but she still looked at her coldly. "Your cousin is gone? Jing Yunjiao, do you know how much I hate you? Why are you saving him and not me?" Wang Rishan said angrily. However, because she was still a little guilty, she did not speak loudly. She was just putting on airs because she was Su Hong's mother-in-law. Chapter 14:17. Jing Yunjiao glanced at her and then at the other decorations in the room. He sneered, "Madam Wang, please take a good look at your current situation. If it wasn't for me, you would still be tied up." What's your relationship with Jeannie? Do you think I'm stupid? I heard what Jeannie said. If it wasn't for you and the Su family, I wouldn't have been kidnapped. Wang Ro-chun felt wronged as she recalled this matter. Originally, she couldn't stand her son shooting at her. She didn't expect that in just a day, she would be transferred from the land to the sea. That Yichu is clearly a little white rabbit, but in the blink of an eye, he became a big bad wolf. When he tied her up, he even stretched out his hand and slapped her a few times. I really wonder if you're Xiaoyun's biological mother. Your IQ has always been off the charts. You're hopelessly stupid. Jing Yunzhao mocked. Although Wang Ro-chun was indeed implicated, if it wasn't for this person being so stupid, she wouldn't have let a wolf into the house. Xiao Hongya only snuck into her side because she saw that she was easy to make use of. Unfortunately, she didn't discover the slightest clue. How can you talk to your elders like that? Wang Ro-chun said angrily. Elder? Are you worthy? Wang Ro-chun, please be sensible and don't cause trouble for me. Otherwise, I'll immediately throw you into the sea to feed the sharks. Jing Yunzhao said coldly. You dare. Wang Ro-chun immediately said. Jing Yunzhao smiled. You think I don't dare? Then why don't I let you have a taste? As soon as she finished speaking, Wang Ro-chun's eyes widened. Jing Yunzhao immediately went forward and pulled Wang Ro-chun up from the bed. The two men in black who were watching Jing Yunzhao saw this and quickly went forward. However, Jing Yunzhao only glanced at them and said, You want to care about this? I remember Jeannie asked me if I should take this opportunity to kill Wang Ro-chun, right? I wasn't willing before, but I regret it now. If you know what's good for you, then scram. Don't hinder me. The two men looked at each other and hesitated. One of them directly contacted Jeannie and told him about this matter. At this moment, Jeannie was enjoying himself with Xiao Hongya in his arms. When he heard this, he immediately said, Let her be. If a piece of trash dies, then so be it. It would be best if she died. If she killed her future mother-in-law with her own hands, how could Jing Yunzhao and Li Xiaoyun continue to be friends? With Jeannie Ran's words, the two men in black immediately retreated to the side. Wang Ro-chun didn't expect that Jing Yunzhao would really dare to make a move on her. She instantly panicked and hurriedly said, Jing Yunzhao, are you crazy? I am Xiaoyun's mother. How can you do this to me? Previously, even though Yi Chu had hit her, his movements were fast and accurate. Wang Ro-chun didn't even have time to react. But now it was different. Jing Yunzhao's strength was extremely strong. She pulled Wang Ro-chun up by the arm, leaving her with no way to resist. She could only feel the flesh on her arm being pulled painfully. Wang Ro-chun didn't want to leave the room. Madam Wang, your son isn't here right now. Even if he was, he wouldn't be soft-hearted towards you. Don't forget, you are the one who pushed your own son out. Jing Yunzhao sneered. Seeing that she was being disobedient, he reached out and pulled her hair fiercely. While they were pulling, Jing Yunzhao took out the locator hidden in her palm and wrapped it around Wang Ro-chun's hair. However, to prevent any accidents from happening, she stuffed all the locators she had on her into Wang Ro-chun's body. This thing was waterproof. As long as the person didn't fall to the bottom of the sea where the water pressure was high, then it was practically indestructible. Chapter 1418. All of this was done by Jing Yunzhao in secret. Wang Ro-chun herself was not aware of this. At this moment, she felt that she had been greatly insulted. Tears flowed down her cheeks. She was extremely upset. What kind of sin did she commit to make her son fall in love with such a vicious woman? She thought that Yi Chu was already a bad person, but she didn't think that Jing Yunzhao was even worse. She was an elder, yet this Jing Yunzhao was pulling and dragging her, as if she wanted to eat her up. Could it be that she really did not care about her son's opinion? That's right. It's that Jeannie. Jeannie asked Jing Yunzhao to follow him before. It must be that Jing Yunzhao was afraid of death, so he agreed to Jeannie's request. That's why he was not afraid of her at all. Wang Ro-chun was angry, but at the same time, she was also afraid. If Jing Yunzhao had the identity of being her daughter-in-law, then she would still have some confidence and feel that Jing Yunzhao wouldn't dare to mess around. But now, Jing Yunzhao had someone to take over at any time, and it was even that vicious genie ran. Under these circumstances, it was hard to guarantee that Jing Yunzhao wouldn't do anything. Wang Ro-chun had never had her own opinions and was extremely timid. Seeing that Jing Yunzhao was about to drag her out of the house, she immediately cried and begged for mercy. Jing Yunzhao, you can't do this to me. I beg you, it hurts. Hurts? When your son shot himself, did you think that he was also in pain? I tolerated you before because I was giving you face. However, you did not know what was good for you and asked for trouble. You can't blame others. Jing Yunzhao said coldly. I know that I have wronged you before. I won't dare to do it again. In the future, you can marry whoever you want. I will not say anything anymore. Wang Ro-chun said again. She was originally a small figure. Her confidence came from her husband and father-in-law. Now that she no longer had the aura of an aristocratic family, she naturally revealed her true colors. Jing Yunzhao's gaze was still as cold as ever. She tugged on her clothes and practically dragged her out of the room. The two men in black behind her saw this and also widened their eyes in astonishment. They didn't think that Jing Yunzhao would be so violent towards someone who could be considered her elder. Do you have a life vest? Can I trouble you to bring me one? Jing Yunzhao said to the two people behind him the moment he stepped onto the bow. As long as Jing Yunzhao didn't do anything to harm Genie-ran, the two of them would still have to listen to her. As such, Jing Yunzhao quickly got what she wanted. As soon as the buoyant life jacket was in his hands, Jing Yunzhao forcefully put it on Wang Ro-chun without saying a word. His rough actions made the two people secretly click their tongues.
What do you want?
Jing Yunzhao, people will die in the sea. What are you trying to do? Wang Ro-chun kept saying, Shut up. Jing Yunzhao glared at Wang Ro-chun and pinched her lips. However, just as her palm was about to touch Wang Ro-chun's lips, a pill slipped out of her hand and was swallowed by Wang Ro-chun. Jing Yunzhao was afraid that Wang Ro-chun would talk too much, so she added, If you say another word, I'll use a knife to carve a flower on your face. Wang Ro-chun was so frightened that she burped. Her eyes were red, and her hair was messy. Everything about her showed how pitiful she was. Her entire person became much more obedient. At this moment, the Jing Yunzhao in her eyes was very different from the one she had seen in the past. In the past, although there were rumors that Jing Yunzhao was not a kind person, she was still his elder. In front of her, Jing Yunzhao was considered to be scrupulous and had never looked at her with such a terrifying gaze. However, now, she felt that Jing Yunzhao would really kill someone. Chapter 1419. Wang Ro-chun shut her mouth. Her face was pale, and she was so frightened that she could not move. Jing Yunzhao acted as though he did not see anything and retracted his hand. He seemed to be disgusted by the dirty life jacket and brushed it off, causing a cloud of white dust to fly up. Miss Jing, what are you doing? At this moment, Genie-ran appeared again. His shirt was unbuttoned, and he was hugging Xiao Hongya in his arms. Xiao Hongya's face was red, and there was a strawberry on her neck. It was obvious what had just happened. This woman is too annoying. Throw her into the sea to feed the fish, Jing Yunzhao said. That's quite fresh. Do you need to wear a life jacket when feeding the fish? Genie-ran glanced at Wang Ro-chun. At this moment, Wang Ro-chun threw herself at Xiao Hongya. Miss Yi, save me. I promise I will return you the money when I get back. Boo. I don't want to die. Xiao Hongya kicked her to the side in disgust. This is international waters. If we just throw her into the sea like this, she'll drown in less than 3 minutes. There's no way we'll be able to vent our anger. I want to see her floating around on the sea. As for how she dies, it'll depend on her luck. If she's lucky, she'll meet a shark that's looking for food and die a quick death. If she's unlucky, she'll just float on the sea for a few days, starving and freezing to death. Jing Yunzhao, let me go. Let me go. I was wrong. I was really wrong. I promise I won't stop you. I won't tell Xiaoyan what I did, as long as you let me go. Wang Ro-chun cried. Her whole body was twitching nonstop. I advise you to save your energy and preserve your strength. Who knows, you might be able to live for a few more minutes. Jing Yunzhao was still as cold as ever. Wang Ro-chun was in despair. When she was tied up by Jean Iran, she only suffered some physical pain. But now that Jing Yunzhao was here, she thought she could escape. Yet, Jing Yunzhao was so heartless as to throw her off the boat. Although she knew how to swim, the seawater was so cold and the sea was so big. Not only was there no food, but there were all kinds of creatures in the sea. How was she supposed to survive? Miss Jing sure knows how to have fun, but since we're going to have fun, of course we have to make it big. Jean Iran sneered and walked over. As soon as his leather boots landed on the boat, the sound of footsteps made one's scalp go numb. After approaching Wang Rishan, Jean Iran took out a short knife from his waist and sneered. He lowered his head and slashed Wang Rishan's calf. Everyone says that a woman's heart is the most vicious, but from the looks of it now, Mr. Jean, you're even more vicious, Jing Yunzhao said. The ferocious fish in the sea were extremely sensitive to the smell of fresh blood. Jean Iran cutting Wang Rishan's leg was undoubtedly taking her life. Although she had secretly sprinkled a lot of powder on Wang Rishan's body that would make some fish repellent, it was better to be safe than sorry. Things that had been planned might not be able to prevent accidents from happening. Whether Wang Rishan could live or not depended on her own fate. Fortunately, there were 3 layers of protection. The medicinal smell on her body was only one of them. Even if it was mixed into the water, it would not be washed away immediately. The second layer of protection was the pill she had swallowed. With that pill, her body would be able to function for 24 hours and prevent her from dying prematurely due to the cold seawater. As for the last layer of protection, it was the location. She and Li Xiaoyan had brought along tracking devices. Although Qiao Hongye had checked before boarding the cruise ship, there were some advanced technologies that Qiao Hongye could not completely remove. Moreover, she had transferred some of them into her space in advance and only put them back later. Now that most of them were stuck on Wang Rishan's body, it would definitely attract the attention of Li Xiaoyan's group of brothers and even the pirates. If there were no accidents, they should be able to save her in a few hours. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.